Tuesday's episode of General Hospital feels like one of those turning point hours where almost every storyline starts collapsing in on itself. I think the emotional center of the episode is going to be the fallout from Britt taking off with Rocco, because it forces characters who have been at odds to finally focus on what actually matters. Lulu is clearly carrying enormous guilt after Britt Westbourne disappeared with Rocco Falconry. To me, Lulu blaming herself makes complete sense because she's been emotionally reactive for a while now, and this situation probably feels like proof that everything spiraled out of control under her watch. But despite all the tension between Lulu and Dante Falconry, I was wondering if this crisis might finally push them back onto the same side. Their hostility has been simmering for too long, and a missing child storyline tends to strip away all the distractions. Meanwhile, Julian Sidwell is shifting fully into revenge mode, and that could make him even more dangerous than before. Instead of grieving quietly, he's channeling everything into finding whoever killed Marco Rios. The interesting part is that Sidwell still seems to be operating with incomplete information, which means innocent people could easily end up in his crosshairs. If Sidwell accuses Lucas Jones, I don't think Ava Jerome will tolerate that for even a second. Ava may be manipulative when she needs to be, but she usually has strong instincts about people she cares about. Lucas betraying Marco in such a brutal way just doesn't fit who he is. The real danger is that Sidwell's obsession may blind him to the obvious truth sitting right in front of him. What makes this storyline tragic is that the audience already knows Ross Colton is responsible. I think the suspense now comes from watching how many wrong conclusions get made before the truth finally surfaces. Soap operas love letting paranoia spread before the actual reveal lands. Carly's scenes with Lucas sound especially emotional because she can immediately see how deeply he's blaming himself. Carly Spencer tends to go into protective mode when the people she loves are vulnerable, and her fear about Lucas living at Windermere with Sidwell feels justified. To me, Carly isn't overreacting here at all. Sidwell is unstable, grieving, and looking for someone to punish. That combination never ends well in Port Charles. At the same time, Sonny Corinthos and Laura Collins appear to be quietly building a long-term strategy against Sidwell. Sonny thinking that Pascal could betray Sidwell is interesting, because it suggests that the cracks inside Sidwell's own circle are already forming. I didn't realize how quickly this could turn into a power struggle from within instead of a direct confrontation. Then there's Alexis and Ava unexpectedly heading to Manhattan together, which honestly feels like one of the most intriguing pairings in the episode. Alexis Davis delivering shocking news to Ava probably ties directly into the investigation surrounding Delilah Cardon's tattoo and the mysterious artist Kyoko. Soap operas are always at their best when separate mysteries slowly connect, and this story feels like it's moving in that direction. I also think Christina and Molly may become suspicious about Alexis suddenly traveling with Ava, especially considering how tense family dynamics already are. Even when characters technically work toward the same goal in Port Charles, trust is always fragile. And finally, Harrison Chase working alongside Detective Joe Fitzpatrick could end up being more important than it first appears. Investigations on this show rarely stay small for long. One clue tends to expose three more secrets. Overall, Tuesday's episode sounds packed with emotional fallout, shifting alliances, and the kind of slow-burning mystery that General Hospital usually handles well when it commits to character-driven tension. I may be wrong, but it feels like the show is setting up Sidwell for a major unraveling while multiple families get pulled into the chaos around him. I think the most interesting part of this whole situation is how unexpected the Nina Reeves and Jack Brennan connection feels. On paper, they really shouldn't work together at all. Brennan is trapped in a dangerous situation. Nina is already juggling secrets and family drama. And somehow, the chaos around them may end up pushing them into the same corner. Right now, Brennan's biggest problem is Ross Cullen. Cullen made it clear that Brennan only stays alive as long as he appears locked in and helpless. The moment Cullen realizes Brennan has recovered, it's probably over for him. To me, that raises the stakes in a huge way because Brennan can't stay drugged forever. If he keeps taking those injections, he risks ending up powerless just like Drew Kane. That's where Nina suddenly becomes incredibly important. I was wondering why the show spent so much time emphasizing that Nina was with Brennan when he collapsed. It feels too deliberate to ignore. Ava Jerome already seems suspicious about how close the two of them are, and that could easily become the foundation for a fake relationship storyline. Honestly, the fake affair angle makes a lot of sense. Nina could claim she and Brennan were secretly involved, which would conveniently explain why she wants to personally care for him instead of letting him get shipped off to Turning Woods. Brennan would be far safer hidden in Nina's home than inside a facility full of columns people watching his every move. And the setup itself has so much soap opera potential. I can already picture Brennan pretending to remain incapacitated whenever someone visits, while Nina plays the protective partner trying to shield him from outside threats. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, the two of them quietly work together to take down Colum and possibly Jen Sidwell, too. What makes this even more entertaining is that Nina and Brennan have surprisingly compatible energy. Nina is impulsive, emotional, and constantly trying to protect the people she loves, while Brennan operates with secrecy and calculated strategy. That contrast could create some genuinely sharp chemistry. Maybe I'm wrong, but soap operas love turning fake romances into real ones. The longer Nina and Brennan are forced to rely on each other, the more believable an actual emotional connection becomes. Shared secrets, danger, deception, that's usually the perfect formula for unexpected romance in Port Charles. I also think this storyline could finally give Nina something more exciting than constantly being pulled into Willow and Drew's orbit. Instead of reacting to everyone else's drama, she would become an active player in a dangerous game involving espionage, manipulation, and survival. If this prediction plays out, Brennan and Nina could end up becoming one of the more unexpectedly entertaining pairings on General Hospital. Their alliance would start as pure survival, but in true soap fashion, feelings have a way of complicating everything. I think this is one of those exits that feels bigger than the show may have planned for. According to reports, Caitlin MacMullen has decided not to renew her contract with General Hospital, which means her run as Christina Corinthos is officially coming to an end. To me, the most interesting part is that this apparently wasn't a network decision or a behind-the-scenes firing situation. MacMullen reportedly made the choice herself, mainly because of travel and changes happening in her personal life. Her husband, producer Matt McGinnis, is currently working overseas on a television project, and it sounds like that reality made continuing a demanding daytime schedule much harder. What really stands out is how emotional her comments were. MacMullen described leaving as a difficult decision and called her time on the soap an unforgettable ride. I was wondering if that wording also hints that she truly expected to stay longer when she first signed on. Sometimes actors sound diplomatic during exits, but this feels more personal and reflective. She even said it feels like the right time for both herself and Christina to move into new adventures, which honestly sounds like someone closing a meaningful chapter rather than simply moving to the next job. MacMullen stepped into the role of Christina in 2023, replacing Lexi Ainsworth, who had been closely associated with the character for years. And whether fans fully embraced the recast or not, I think MacMullen undeniably brought a more intense and emotionally volatile energy to Christina. Her version of the character often felt unpredictable, wounded, impulsive, and sometimes even dangerously reactive. That interpretation changed the tone of Christina's stories in a major way. What may surprise some viewers is that Mancy had already established herself as a major daytime name long before GH. A lot of soap fans still connect her most strongly to Days of Our Lives, where she played Abigail Devereaux Dimira. That role earned her 2 Daytime Emmy Awards and helped build her reputation as an actress who could handle emotionally heavy material. So when she arrived at GH, expectations were already extremely high. I also think Frank Valentini responding publicly is important. He made it clear the door remains open for her return, which usually tells me there's no bad blood behind the scenes. In soap opera language, that often means producers want flexibility in case the actress eventually decides to come back. At the same time, the report saying there are currently no recast plans is fascinating. That could mean the show intends to temporarily write Christina out entirely instead of immediately replacing her, and honestly, that may be the smartest move. Christina has been heavily involved in emotional family drama recently, and another recast so quickly after Mancy could feel jarring for viewers. One detail fans should definitely pay attention to is timing. Mancy reportedly wrapped filming back in April, which means her final scenes are expected to air sometime around June. That creates a very interesting situation because General Hospital spoilers say Christina receives major news on Tuesday, May 26th. Maybe I'm wrong, but it really does feel like the beginning of her exit arc. Soap operas usually start laying emotional groundwork weeks before a departure actually happens on screen. Big revelations, sudden opportunities, family conflicts, or emotional crossroads are often signs that a character is being positioned for a temporary or permanent goodbye. The bigger question now is what General Hospital does with Christina Corinthos moving forward. The character is deeply tied to the Corinthos family legacy, so permanently removing her from the canvas would leave a noticeable gap. But if the writers pause the character for a while instead of recasting immediately, it could preserve the possibility of Kate Mancy eventually returning down the line. And honestly, in daytime television, goodbye rarely means forever. I think the next 3 weeks on General Hospital are shaping up to feel darker, more emotional, and honestly a lot more dangerous than usual. Between Rocco disappearing, Jocelyn fighting for survival, and Ross Cullen making enemies all over Port Charles, it feels like the show is slowly building toward a major explosion by mid-June. During the week of May 25th through May 29th, the fallout around Willow Kane and Nina Reeves could become even more complicated. Willow is clearly going to spiral once she realizes Nina backed away from poisoning Jack Brennan again. But to me, Nina's hesitation may actually reveal something bigger. She might decide Brennan is more useful alive than dead. I was wondering if this is the beginning of an unexpected alliance instead of another revenge cycle. At the same time, Valentin Cassadine making some kind of grand gesture toward Carly Spencer feels suspiciously timed. Nothing involving Valentin is ever simple, especially when Charlotte Cassadine is suddenly shaken by something she sees on her phone. That detail stands out because it sounds like the show is preparing viewers for a huge emotional reveal connected to Rocco Falconry. Rocco potentially reaching out through a burner phone almost feels like a goodbye message waiting to happen. If that's true, then Charlotte leaning on Danny Morgan before finally confiding in Carly makes perfect emotional sense. She's still just a kid carrying adult-sized secrets, and I think the writers are pushing her toward a breaking point. Meanwhile, Sonny Corintho's warning Dante Falconry and Lulu Spencer suggests the danger around Ross Cullum is escalating fast. If Sonny learns the truth about Rocco's situation, I can absolutely see him deciding Cullum needs to disappear permanently before he tracks Rocco and Britt Westbourne down. That's classic Sonny logic. Eliminate the threat before it destroys the family. What really caught my attention, though, was Ethan Lovett receiving a mysterious new assignment. That could honestly go in several directions. Maybe he joins the hunt for Rocco, or maybe he becomes part of something much deadlier involving Cullum and Jen Sidwell. The show seems determined to connect multiple storylines into one larger conspiracy. Moving into the week of June 1st through June 5th, Curtis Ashford may finally face legal consequences if Ada Justine Turner decides to prosecute him over Isaiah Gannon. But even with all that happening, the storyline involving Ava Jerome and Alexis Davis might end up being the real mystery centerpiece. The Manhattan Gallery connected to Kyoko, the artist behind Delilah Wilson's tattoo, sounds like one of those classic soap opera breadcrumbs that leads somewhere massive. I didn't realize at first how many secrets could be tied into that single detail. Whether it reveals information about Ethan, Phoebe, or a hidden baby daddy situation, it definitely feels like the kind of clue that accidentally puts everyone in danger. And honestly, Jocelyn Jacks may end up delivering some of the strongest material over these weeks. Her captivity storyline has slowly turned into a survival thriller. If Cassius Faison pretending to be Nathan West underestimates her, he may regret it quickly. Anna Devane secretly leaving behind makeshift weapons feels very intentional, almost like Anna already expects Jocelyn to fight back violently when the opportunity comes. By the week of June 8th through June 12th, I think the biggest surprise may involve Nina and Brennan growing closer while working against Cullum and Sidwell. It would be ironic if a partnership built around manipulation and danger slowly turned romantic. On this show, that kind of twisted chemistry usually turns into something real. But the biggest looming question is definitely Ross Cullum's fate. At this point, nearly everyone has a reason to want him gone. Sonny, Brennan, Nina, possibly Ethan. Maybe even characters we haven't considered yet. The list just keeps growing. That's why I wouldn't be shocked if the writers are quietly setting up a full whodunit murder mystery. To me, Cullum already feels like a dead man walking. The interesting part is figuring out who finally pushes him over the edge first. I think the most important part of this entire General Hospital storyline is that Anna Devane was never truly defeated. She was delayed, hidden away, drugged, isolated, and buried inside that French clinic situation, but not broken. And now it feels like the clock on Ross Cullen's empire is finally running out. What really stands out to me is that Anna may be the only person alive who fully understands the layout of that basement prison. She knows the hallways, the hidden door, the timing, the routines, every terrifying detail. The message Jocelyn Jacks keeps staring at on the wall, Anna wrote it. The lockpick and blade hidden inside the mattress, Anna planted them there as survival tools for whoever came next. And now Joss is unknowingly sitting exactly where Anna once sat. That connection changes everything. The moment Anna is medically cleared and released from that private French clinic, the entire balance of power shifts. Suddenly, Cullen and Jen Sidwell are no longer operating in darkness. Anna carries the map in her head, and once she gets back to Port Charles, the WSB finally has a real shot at tearing the operation apart. To me, the clinic transfer itself is one of the most revealing parts of the story because it quietly exposes where Willow Kane's loyalty now stands. Willow isn't just helping with paperwork here. She's risking her reputation, her political future, and possibly her freedom to get Anna moved out of that prison-level psychiatric facility and into a private clinic where release is actually possible. That's a huge move. And I don't think it's accidental that she made this choice after Laura Collins pushed for it. Willow seems to be stepping away from the influence surrounding Jack Brennan and aligning herself with Laura and Anna instead. There's almost a passing of the torch feeling happening underneath all this, a younger generation deciding which side they're really on. What makes the storyline even more fascinating is how quietly Laura has apparently been orchestrating everything behind the scenes. I was wondering for a while why Laura seemed oddly calm despite all the chaos surrounding Sidwell Column and the disappearances. Now it feels like we're seeing the answer. Laura has been positioning people like chess pieces. She pushed Willow to handle Anna's transfer. She reportedly encouraged Sonny Corinthos to pressure Sidwell through Pazzellos. She had Lulu Spencer disappear with Rocco Falconry before things escalated further. None of those moves looked connected at first, but now they feel like part of one coordinated strategy preparing for Anna's return. And Anna's return could trigger the collapse of the entire operation. Because once the French authorities clear her medically and drop the charges, there's no more hiding her away overseas. Within hours of landing back in Port Charles, Anna would likely be debriefed by the WSB in a secure location. And I think everyone already knows what her first words will be: Spoon Island, that basement, Jocelyn. The irony here is that Colin believed secrecy was his greatest weapon. He assumed nobody knew where Anna had been held. Nobody knew about the basement room, the coded wall message, or the emergency tools hidden in the mattress. But Anna spent all that time observing, memorizing, and preparing for the day someone else ended up trapped there, possibly Joss. And now Joss already has the clues Anna left behind. She has the lock pick. She has the blade. What she doesn't have is backup. But backup is finally coming home. I may be wrong, but this feels less like a slow burn mystery now and more like the final countdown before a major rescue operation explodes across Port Charles. Anna's return isn't just another character comeback. It feels like the trigger that sets Laura's entire hidden plan into motion. And if that happens, Cyrus' carefully constructed empire may collapse faster than he ever imagined. I keep thinking Ross Calling is headed for a brutal reality check on General Hospital. Right now he walks around like he's untouchable, like no one can stop him. But soap operas never let villains hold that kind of power forever. Eventually the consequences always catch up to people like him. To me, Cyrus has become the definition of a true soap villain. He creates chaos everywhere he goes, threatens anyone who gets in his way, and leaves destruction behind without hesitation. As long as he's still around, nobody is really safe. And honestly, prison feels far too easy for someone this dangerous. I feel like the only ending that would truly fit his storyline is a deadly one. The more this story unfolds, the more I think General Hospital may be building toward a huge murder mystery centered around Cyrus. He already has an enormous list of enemies, and that list keeps growing every single week. At some point, all those threats, betrayals, and power plays are bound to explode. Cyrus keeps acting like he controls everyone around him, but I don't think he realizes how many people are quietly reaching their breaking point. If he finally meets a fatal end, the fallout could turn into one of the show's biggest whodunits in years. Sonny Corinthos would immediately land on the suspect list. Lucas Jones could also come under suspicion, along with Pascal and especially Jen Sidwell if he discovers the truth about Marco Rios being attacked. There are honestly so many characters who would have a motive that the mystery could go in almost any direction. I could also see Dante Falconry, Lulu Spencer, Cassius Faison, also known as Nathan West, and maybe even Danny Morgan getting pulled into the investigation. Every one of them has emotional ties, personal grudges, or reasons to want Cullen gone. Then there's Valentin Cassadine, Carly Spencer, and Jocelyn Jacks once she finally gets her freedom. Their involvement would make perfect sense considering everything that's happened recently. Ethan Lovett is another interesting possibility. Once he learns the full truth about Rocco and Cullen, I think his perspective could completely change. Even if Ethan wouldn't personally carry out something that extreme, he could still end up doing Sonny's dirty work if the situation spirals far enough. And honestly, Jack Brennan might be the most dangerous suspect of all. Cullen currently believes he's completely safe, which is usually the moment soap villains make their biggest mistake. Brennan could easily take advantage of that false confidence when nobody expects it. I may be wrong, but it really feels like General Hospital is positioning Cullen for a massive downfall. The bigger his ego becomes, the closer he gets to the moment everything crashes down around him. I think Ethan Lovett is stepping into a much bigger role now, and honestly, it feels like Port Charles desperately needs someone willing to go straight into the danger instead of standing around reacting to it. This whole situation with Rocco Falconry spiraled out of control so fast that nobody really has time to process what's happening anymore. What really stood out to me is how guilty Lulu Spencer feels. She's blaming herself for Rocco disappearing, and in a way you can understand why. She was already desperate enough to get fake passports arranged, and Ethan helping her nearly dragged him into serious legal trouble. But I don't think anyone expected Ethan to suddenly vanish on his own afterward. That changes everything. Meanwhile, Dante Falconry uncovering the hospital trail made the mystery even darker. Rocco apparently left with Britt Westbourne, and the discovery of their smashed phones together in the parking lot feels like a deliberate warning. To me, that instantly suggests someone wanted communication cut off completely. At the same time, Sonny Corinthos and Rick Lansing finally started connecting the dots about Jim Sidwell. The Deception Cosmetics operation clearly isn't just business anymore. I was wondering how long it would take before someone realized the company was acting as a front for whatever Sidwell has been secretly transporting to Spoon Island. Suddenly, his obsession with Sonny's peers makes perfect sense. He needed a clear shipping route, and now it looks like the scale of this operation is far bigger than anyone first imagined. Then came the revelation that completely shifted the story for me. Britt contacted Sonny before disappearing and revealed that Sidwell murdered Henry Dalton. That alone is explosive, but Charlotte Cassadine adding that Britt was being blackmailed makes the situation even more disturbing. According to Charlotte, Sidwell and Ross Cullum forced Britt to work on a dangerous project by holding her Huntington's disease medication over her head. Honestly, that's brutal. Even characters who normally wouldn't defend Britt seem shaken by it. Sonny especially appears furious because now he realizes Britt may have been trapped the entire time instead of willingly participating. And I think Sonny's instincts are probably right here. Rocco most likely left voluntarily. Nothing so far suggests he was kidnapped. It feels more like he chose to go with Britt because he either trusts her or believes she's protecting him from something even worse. The mention of Ross Cullum also changes the tone of the story completely. He doesn't sound like just another shady figure operating in the background. To me, the show is positioning him as someone genuinely dangerous, maybe even more unpredictable than Victor Cassadine ever was. If Cullum and Sidwell are truly working together, Port Charles may be dealing with an entirely different level of threat. That's why Ethan's new mission actually feels important instead of reckless. He knows Windermere better than almost anyone, even if Spoon Island has changed over the years. With Sonny backing him, Ethan now has a real purpose. Expose whatever Sidwell is building, find Britt and Rocco, and destroy this operation before it gets even worse. I may be wrong, but this storyline feels like it's building toward a major showdown involving Spoon Island, hidden experiments, and multiple families colliding at once. And for the first time in a while, Ethan doesn't feel like a side character drifting through the chaos. He feels central to it. I think this week on General Hospital felt less like a traditional soap and more like a pressure cooker where every secret, bad decision and emotional wound finally started exploding all at once. Almost every storyline circled around guilt, loyalty, and people convincing themselves they were protecting family while actually making everything far worse. The Curtis situation especially stood out to me because the show seems determined to highlight how completely unwilling he is to accept responsibility. After the brutal fight with Isaiah left Isaiah hospitalized with broken bones and severe injuries, Curtis immediately shifted into blame mode. Even after Officer Joe arrested him, Curtis acted like he was the victim of unfair treatment instead of someone whose rage spiraled out of control. Jordan backed him, Dante tried to keep the peace, and yet the real tension came from Joe refusing to look the other way. I was actually surprised by how much the show leaned into Joe's integrity here. He may be new, but he instantly became one of the few people willing to challenge the Port Charles power structure instead of bending to it. Meanwhile, the Anna storyline keeps getting darker. Learning that Anna was trapped in a psychiatric facility in France after attempting escape added another layer of tragedy to everything surrounding her disappearance. Laura's determination to rescue her felt believable because Anna has become one of those people everyone owes something to. Emma's emotional investment also gave the story heart, while Jocelyn discovering Anna's message confirmed the horrifying reality that Anna had been imprisoned there for months. What really fascinated me was Valentin's reaction. His argument with Carly revealed how divided his loyalties still are. Carly wanted him focused on rescuing Jocelyn, but the second he learned Anna was in danger, everything changed. To me, that says Anna still holds a massive emotional place in Valentin's life, no matter how much chaos exists between them. Their relationship has always operated in this gray area between love, obsession, and regret. The Windermere material felt like classic soap suspense in the best way possible. Danny and Charlotte sneaking around while dangerous adults discuss murder conspiracies, experimental medicine, and Faison's final project had a genuinely creepy atmosphere. I think the reveal surrounding Rocco shooting Julian instead of Danny completely shifts the emotional weight of the story. Suddenly, Rocco is carrying around trauma far beyond what anyone realized, and his panic makes much more sense in retrospect. Britt's scenes with Rocco were honestly heartbreaking. She knows she's dying. She knows dangerous people are closing in, and yet she still became the one person Rocco trusted enough to run away with. His line about wanting to spend as much time with her as possible before she dies really hit hard because it stripped away all the spy intrigue and criminal plotting. At its core, it became about a scared kid trying not to lose someone he loves. The Lulu and Dante conflict was another standout. Their confrontation felt raw because both of them genuinely believe they're protecting Rocco. Lulu thinks escape is survival. Dante thinks keeping Rocco close is safety. Neither is entirely wrong, which made the argument work emotionally. I actually liked that Dante finally stopped reacting emotionally and took action by putting Lulu under surveillance. For once, he sounded less conflicted and more like a father desperate to stop his family from completely imploding. Laura quietly became one of the week's most important players, too. She's juggling Anna's rescue, Lulu's choices, Charlotte's protection, and now the growing war against Sidwell. What's interesting is how she keeps operating as the emotional center of the story while everyone around her spirals into chaos. The Sidwell storyline is turning into something much bigger than simple revenge. Sunny and Rick realizing Sidwell was using deception for his mystery project suggests there's still another major reveal coming. Britt exposing that Sidwell killed Dalton and that Pascal helped cover it up feels like the beginning of the endgame. Sunny deciding to weaponize Sidwell's grief over Marco was also very classic Sunny Corinthos, emotional manipulation disguised as strategy. Nina's scenes with Jack may have been some of the most important character work of the week. Watching her hesitate before injecting him showed that guilt is finally overpowering fear. For a moment, it looked like Nina realized she has crossed too many moral lines already. Whether that redemption sticks is another question entirely. And then there's the ending. Britt locking Elizabeth in a closet before fleeing town with Rocco was pure soap chaos, but somehow emotionally grounded at the same time. The image of Britt and Rocco speeding away after destroying their phones felt almost cinematic. Two desperate people running from forces much larger than themselves, knowing time is running out in more ways than one. I may be wrong, but this entire week felt like setup for a massive collision course. Sidwell is losing control. Sunny is preparing for war. Dante and Lulu are tearing each other apart over Rocco, and Anna's return could expose everything. The show seems to be moving every major character into position for one explosive fallout where alliances completely change. I think Alexis is realizing the situation is far more dangerous than it first appeared. And that's exactly why she doesn't want Brooklyn or Chase charging into Manhattan asking questions. The Quartermain name opens doors, but it also puts people on alert. To me, Alexis understands that if Delilah Wilson was hiding from someone, the wrong kind of attention could make the truth disappear before they ever get close to it. What really stood out to me in this storyline was Ava Jerome immediately recognizing the tattoo connection. That moment felt important. Ava's world has always overlapped with art, wealthy collectors, shady connections, and people who operate in gray areas. So Alexis turning to her for help actually makes perfect sense. I was wondering if this partnership could become one of the more interesting investigative duos GH has done in a while because they each bring very different instincts to the table. The mention of the Japanese artist Kyoko also feels like more than a random detail. Soap operas rarely drop a specific name without a larger reason behind it. Delilah clearly had some emotional attachment to Kyoko's work if she permanently marked herself with that tattoo. But that doesn't automatically mean their relationship ended well. In fact, I think the show may be hinting at something darker underneath the surface. There's a possibility Kyoko was someone Delilah trusted during a crisis. Maybe she helped Delilah disappear, hide, or escape whatever trouble she was facing before Phoebe was born. But there's also another angle that feels very soap opera perfect. What if Kyoko herself is connected to the danger? GH loves morally complicated characters, and it would not surprise me if Kyoko turns out to be both protector and threat at the same time. I also didn't overlook the meaning behind Kyoko's name, pure child or holy child. GH writers tend to use symbolism carefully, especially in mystery arcs involving Bobby's hidden parents and long-buried secrets. To me, that feels directly tied to Phoebe and the growing questions surrounding her origins. Then there's Ethan Lovett hanging over this entire story. The show keeps nudging viewers toward the idea that Ethan may be Delilah's baby's father, which honestly makes me suspicious. GH has a habit of making the obvious answer look true right before revealing something far messier. Maybe Ethan really is the father, or maybe the writers are setting him up as a convenient distraction while another name stays hidden in the shadows. What makes this even more dangerous is the possibility that Alexis and Ava uncovering the truth could expose Ethan to whoever Delilah feared in the first place. I can easily imagine their trip to the gallery triggering attention from someone who has worked very hard to keep these secrets buried. And if Phoebe is somehow connected to a larger scheme, then she could become a target too. Ava and Alexis walking into that Manhattan gallery may look like a simple fact-finding mission, but I think it's going to open the door to something much bigger. GH spoilers keep teasing shockers and shakeups, and this feels exactly like the kind of mystery that slowly explodes into a full-blown family scandal.